a book that revealed information on the end of the world and how the four elements, earth, water, fire, and wind, would all occur at the same time, was banned by the CIA. A highly secret book that the CIA partially declassified in 2013 included information that was still classified as classified. When will the sixth world end occur? Let's investigate a book that the CIA prohibited. The CIA actually banned the book. California's mountains are trembling. The Pacific Sea continually builds up into mountains that are higher than 3,000 meters, and everything is swiftly absorbed by the sea at the speed of sound in a sudden collapse. Like a grain of sand, it abruptly engulfed San Francisco and Los Angeles. This scene is familiar, that the end of the world scenario from 2012? More specifically, parts of the movie 2012 are lifted from a 1960s novel, published in 1965 under the title The Story of Adam and Eve. That book was. The novel's opening sequence is faithfully adapted in the screenplay for the movie 2012. The Story of Adam and Eve was written by Chan Thomas. You were employed at McDonnell Douglas as an electrical engineer once. Along with Boeing and Lockheed Martin, McDonnell Douglas was a well-known producer of aircraft equipment in the 1960s and 1980s. Concurrently, McDonnell is a Pentagon-affiliated defense equipment business that has assumed many classified projects from the Pentagon. After being published, the book astonished readers, but the CIA quickly classified it as a secret document. In less than a year, it entirely vanished. Individuals claim on YouTube that the CIA banned the book. An intelligence organization, the CIA lacks the power to stop a book from being published. America of free expression, this is not feasible. CIA must sue as a petitioner in order to impose restrictions on books, and the court will provide a decision. The author's exposure to material that the US government had classified as highly classified, but that was disclosed in the book, is probably the reason for this so-called prohibition in this instance. The CIA and the author had a non-disclosure agreement. Therefore, the agency might sue to prevent this book from being published on the grounds that the agreement was broken. The specifics of this case, however, have not been made public owing to the sensitive nature of the information involved. All I know is that this book's disappearance had to involve the CIA in some way. The CIA declassified and published portions of the book by 2013. It's called Part of Confidentiality, Clean said and approved. Here, Clean refers to the version having had the sensitive data encrypted and erased. The decoded version of the book is just 57 pages long, compared to 284 pages in the original. This is only an extract. It's not termed declassification. In reality, Thomas republished the book in 1993, but this time it received less notice and was not prohibited by the CIA. With only 127 pages, the 1993 edition of the book contains less than half of the original work. Still, compared to the CIA-approved experiment, it's far richer. Why then is this book prohibited? The novel opened with a graphic depiction of a tragic disaster. He said that winds were constantly blowing at 1,600 km/h over the continent. It shaves the earth like a razor. What does 1,600 km/h mean in terms of wind speed? On April 10, 1996, the Earth's wind speed record was set. Then, a tropical tornado known as Olivia made landfall on Australia's Yarrow Island and traveled quickly across the country. 408 km/h was the highest wind speed recorded. The wind speed in Thomas's novel is 4 times faster than that of Tornado Olivia. Yet 400 km/h is an amazing statistic. How could there be a wind this strong? All living things on Earth are at danger under this tsunami. The wind will not carry away or tear apart the organisms that are unable to hide under the surface. Volcanoes and earthquakes also had a part in the carnage. Seawater is boiled by lava. The wind picked it up hundreds of miles per hour in 3 hours. The massive walls of water also crashed against the mainland. Up to 3 kilometers of boiling water engulfs both cities and villages. All traces of human civilization vanished in a matter of days. Legends have emerged from the cities that contemporary man is most proud of: New York, Los Angeles, London, and Paris. A few hours ago, the villages were still bustling, but today, it appears as though barely a single rock remains. Of sure, a few fortunate survivors exist among the billions of people on the planet, even in a catastrophic event like this one. Perhaps they were in a cave or close to the summit of the mountain, seeking refuge from the all-encompassing calamity of land, water, fire, and wind. Ultimately, though, their survival isn't dependent on how long their luck holds. Because there is going to be another natural disaster involving quick freezing and a sharp drop in temperature, following earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, and tornadoes. Tens of degrees were decreased in global temperatures, similar to what occurred in the day after tomorrow. With no contemporary heating systems and temperatures in the 20s, fortunate individuals need to possess sufficient cold resistance experience to prolong their good fortune and survive. According to Thomas, no location on Earth could avoid this calamity in his novel. Human civilization needs to start over. What then triggered this global catastrophe? According to Thomas, cyclical variations in the Earth's magnetic poles are mostly to blame for the impending cataclysm. The magnetic extremes, for instance, rapidly weaken. The bonding force between the Earth's crust and the melting layer underneath it will then quickly diminish as a result. As everyone knows, the crust, or outermost layer of the Earth, is composed of tiny rocks and layers of soil. There are regional variations in the thickness of the Earth's rock shells. The thickest section is more than 70 km thick, while the thinnest is about 5 km thick. The coating refers to the rock that lies behind the shell. Similar to the coating and other solid materials mixed, the semi-solid lava coating is a melting rock. With an average speed of 1,600 km/h around the equator, the Earth is still revolving incredibly quickly. Lava underneath the Earth's crust and the rocks that make up its crust stay together. That shell and lava layer, however, are separated by the abrupt rotation of Earth's magnetic poles. The fluid inside the egg will split from the inner wall of the eggshell, much as when you shake a raw egg vigorously. The weight distribution of this shell is really quite unequal, in addition to the massive volumes of glaciers found in Greenland and Antarctica. The eggshell rotates and travels 90 degrees as the fluid inside the egg separates from the shell. As a result, the equator becomes the polar region and equator becomes the polar area. Keep in mind that the term shell refers to the Earth's whole outer shell. The shift with respect to the Earth's interior structure is not a result of a modification to the planet's orbit or axis of inclination. The Earth appears to be stationary. Although the ocean is near the equator, the Earth's crust has seen a significant shift, and the atmosphere is still traveling eastward at a speed of 1,600 km/h, owing to inertia. Consequently, the air travels over the continent at a very high speed, creating a catastrophic wind disaster. Not a single building can withstand the force of this wind. Still, the seawater flows in its initial inertia when it moves rapidly, creating a gigantic tsunami. The earth, water, fire, and wind calamities that were previously described comprise the entire process. According to Thomas, humankind would end before such a massive disaster, and only a select few lucky people would survive to be the forefathers of future generations. Thus, he named his apocalypse after the biblical Adam and Eve, the progenitors of all humans. Thomas has said unequivocally that this account of Adam and Eve is not his own. He claimed to have calculated 5 times the disaster that destroyed civilization using the findings of geological study conducted in the 1960s, including the discovery of prehistoric biological remains and the investigation of the origins of certain peculiar terrain. More than 50,000 years ago is when the oldest destruction that can be determined occurred. The most recent ice age in our modern period was brought about by that catastrophe. 30,000 years ago was the second extinction. That calamity formed the Caspian Sea that exists today in Central Asia. That was 18,000 years ago for the third. 11,500 years ago was the fourth occurrence. And that was just 7,000 years ago for the final one, the fifth. Thomas contends that myths and historical accounts from many countries subtly attest to the occurrence of geomagnetic disasters in addition to looking for geological proof. In the Egyptian society that emerged 18,000 years ago after the Great Flood, the deity Osiris was like to Jesus in that he preached and trained followers to save others. There is a tale that states that the Hindu deity Vishnu had 10 births. According to Thomas, the 10 revolving lives represent 10 times the rise and fall of human civilization. Thomas also gave a Bible explanation. He contends that at least 2 geomagnetic disasters that have caused suffering to humankind are mentioned in the Bible. The narrative of Adam and Eve once existed. According to Thomas, the 2 of them are the only ones who survived 11,500 years ago, when society collapsed. They evolved into the following civilization's ancestors. And the calamity that occurred 7,000 years ago is the subject of the Noah's ship narrative. The current human civilization's progenitor is the Noah family that survived. What counts is the timing of the next disaster of land, water, fire, and wind comes. In the 1960s, Thomas stated his forecast. According to his prediction, the second major disaster would occur more than 10,000 years after the first one, which would occur after the millennium or after the year 2000 AD. However, Thomas acknowledged that the duration of the calamity he provided was really an approximation. Actually, there may be a 200-year difference. In order to produce more precise forecasts, scientists must simulate using very powerful computers. Regardless of how false it may be, the year is 2023, and our civilization intimately connected to the cataclysmic event. As Thomas anticipated, time has moved over the caution line and into the red warning area. The apocalyptic catastrophe seemed to be approaching quickly. The following is a summary of the main ideas in The Story of Adam and Eve. You may be thinking, as you listen to this, that nothing exceptional has happened since there are so many novels and movies about the end of the world. That is not nearly as terrible as the apocalypse depicted in some science fiction literature. Why then did the CIA not forbid them and designate Thomas's book as confidential material? The book, The Story of Adam and Eve, hasn't been completely revealed up to this point. Additionally, certain private information has been removed or not released. Most likely, some of the book's predictions were not realized in 2013, as evidenced by the removal of some information by the CIA in that year. Thus, the prohibition has been removed because they are no longer a threat. The remainder of it is unknown, and the author passed away in 1998. As a result, we are unaware of the true cause of the prohibition. Residents of the Internet are paying close attention to this. On the Internet, people are conversing. Regarding the primary rationale behind the book's prohibition, there are 2 basic theories. Thomas was employed at McDonnell Douglas before, to start with. He also possesses some of the Pentagon's secrets. He's also a strange individual with an extremely high IQ who has correctly predicted a few significant information regarding the main secrets of the US government. That means your book is being watched and labeled as classified by the CIA. This looks like a realistic guess, but the CIA can find Thomas if they have any suspicions. In actuality, though, Thomas wasn't watched. He was free to continue writing, publishing books and articles. Thus, this conjecture was rejected. The second presumption is that the book is authentic, but it is prohibited because it will cause major problems, such as societal unrest and a threat to national security. Thomas removed this part from the book's 1993 version. Thus, the publication of your second edition went well. From this perspective, we can uncover some hints. The writers of the 1993 edition of the book discover the cause of the cyclical rotation of the Earth's magnetic poles. His writing was vague when he said, "Some people think that the sun's black spots can be the culprits." Then he moved on to other subjects. It is actually not Thomas's hypothesis that the Earth's shell moves in space. In 1958, Hapgood, a geologist, made the proposal. Changes in the Earth's Bark is a novel that Hapgood authored. The pole shift theory, which is the subject of this book, holds that significant alterations in the Earth's crust are what trigger ancient natural calamities. Academics ridiculed the transpolar theory when it was put forward, contending that it belonged in the category of fantasy literature. In actuality, though, there are no distinct borders between science and science fiction. It was impossible to establish any solid proof that the Earth was not moving and that the shell was moving at the outset of the polar displacement theory. This seems enigmatic. But when geological and archaeological methods of monitoring geophysical settings developed, scientists were somewhat aback to learn that pole changes may actually occur. Since 2007, the Earth's magnetic field has actually been weaker, according to scientific observations. Every 100 years, on average, it weakens by 5%. Researchers have found that the Earth's magnetic pole is moving 60 kilometers per year in addition to a weakening of the magnetic field. Concurrently, computer simulations indicate that the Earth's magnetic poles will flip from south to north, and vice versa, over a 500,000-year timescale. However, despite 780,000 rotations, the Earth's magnetic poles have not switched positions. Would the Earth's crust move if, as Professor Hapgood suggested, the magnetic poles were unexpectedly reversed one day? This conclusion is not well supported by the available data. Even while Hapgood's idea of polar displacement is still regarded as pseudoscience, by many scientists, there have been instances of pseudoscience in scientific history that have not only regained credibility, but even evolved into accepted theories. The well-known notion of continental slide is one example. Not only was it ridiculed when it was initially put out in the early 1900s, still, it's the prevailing theory today. Additionally, the Earth's magnetic field may be disrupted if the velocity of the sunspeck that Thomas discusses is anomalous. This is further shown by the fact that a magnetic storm, a natural event on Earth, occurs whenever a significant cluster of black dots forms on the Sun. It will tremble so violently that it will lose its sense of direction. The dark patches we observe on the Sun are the powerful magnetic field activity, or sunspots. The Sun explodes with black patches around every 11 years. The Sun will emit more energy toward Earth, while the high solar spots are active. The Earth's atmosphere may warm as a result, resulting in unusual weather like more frequent and powerful storms. Through the solar wind, the Sun's dark patches also have an impact on Earth. A polar phenomena is created when the solar wind, an electrically charged particle expelled by the Sun, interacts with the Earth's magnetic field. Stronger solar winds that interfere with satellite systems and communications are likely to occur when solar spots are consistently active. Furthermore, birds that depend on the Earth's magnetic field for direction may also become disoriented. The Earth's temperature will drop if there are insufficient sunspots. A little ice age may even happen in severe circumstances. Therefore, an excessive number or lack of sunspots will negatively impact Earth. The Earth's magnetic field can be disrupted by the solar wind and the Sun's dark spots. This impact is without dispute. The fact that interference will occur if the magnetic field is disrupted raises suspicions. Could its effects be severe enough to alter the crust of the Earth? The four major calamities of earth, water, fire, and wind can be collected by it. Scientists listen to this question and shake their heads. They claim that cosmic rays and solar winds would truly harm Earth if the magnetic field were weaker or vanished. There will be more fatal hazards to people's health. Modern gadgets that rely on the Earth's magnetic field, like the GPS localization system, may malfunction as well. This is going to occur in reality. However, it sounds enigmatic to claim that the tremendous movement of the Earth's crust beneath the magnets will be caused by their displacement. Is the magnetic field really that strong? Is a typical query. According to Thomas, variations in the Earth's magnetic fields have an impact on how the solid rock crust and the soft interior of the planet interact to move the crust. What then are these gluable soil layers, mostly electromagnetic rather than gravitational? Even though gravity is involved, electromagnetic is far more powerful than gravity. The shifting black spots on the Sun cause changes in the Earth's electromagnetic environment, which in turn affects the Earth's magnetic field. The electromagnetic force of the Earth serves as a glue to hold the structural layers together. Unpredictable changes result from the glue after it stops working. The shell now has no nucleus, indicating that there is no longer any connection between the shells of this object and the inner multiplier. The entire shell can, of course, move somewhat. Naturally, this idea on the movement of the Earth's crust is still only that, a theory. According to scientific principles, a hypothesis cannot become a theory until it is supported by observation and empirical facts. Thomas proposed a number of ideas, starting with the shifting of the sunspots, followed by variations in the Earth's magnetic field, the shifting of the planet's crust, the devastation of ancient civilizations due to fire, wind, water, and land. It is clear that this set of leaping conjectures has advanced significantly, to the point where they are now regarded as mostly abandoned and directly contradict the three main branches of science: geology, evolution, and geophysics. What are your thoughts after seeing today's video? Feel free to leave your comments below. I appreciate you seeing. Greetings! Have a look at the next video.